it's all about passion.
Yes.
And, for me, getting cast in the X-Files was like a dream come true. I mean, it was one of my favorite shows, right?
Oh,
and I usually went up for 5 lines or less. So when I first got the sides from my manager, who was responsible for getting me in that room, I called her and I said, I think there's been a mistake. And she said, why? And I said, because there's 7 pages of sides. I don't think this was meant for me. And she said, read it. It was meant for you. Call me back. So I read it and I thought, oh, wow.
Love it.
And so I called her back and I said, okay, I'll prepare. And I can't remember if the audition, I don't think it was on a Monday. I think it was on a Tuesday, but I worked over the weekend on it. And, I pretty much knew it, but I wasn't going to let go of that paper at all. And then they called me, or she called me and said, okay, now you know where you're going on the lot, right? You know where you're going. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to ask where I'm going when I get there. It's 20th Century Fox. I don't know that lot. And she's like, okay. So I get over there and they give me the instructions and, it's a huge place. And so I, walk through whatever, and I get to the casting director's office and I walk in and there's all these men, like there's all these men. And actually, no, that was for the callback. I take that back. I walked into the casting director's office, and there was nobody there. He had a tiny bungalow, and then he asked me in, and I sat directly across from him, and we read the sides. And he looks at me, and he says, and I'm from the South originally, so I just read him the way I would at home, right? And then he looks at me and he goes, I like that real innocent thing you got going there. Now, I had no idea what he was talking about. Okay, fine. And then he said, can you hang out? Can you hang out for an hour or so and meet with the producers and writers? And I was like, sure, yeah. And it was a little drizzly. It was like late October kind of. And not at late October, it was early October. And it was kind of, and I said, yeah, no problem. Because what did I have to do, right? And so I go hang out and I go to the commissary, which is closed. And then, because it's raining. And then I decided to walk back and go to that bungalow he told me to. And that's when I walked in and I saw all these men. And John O'Hurley was among them. But I saw all these other men. And they were stars. They were soap stars. They were television, like second leads, and people that you might not know their name, but you've seen them on everything. And they were all tall. They were all tall, dark, and handsome. They're gorgeous men. And they're all signing in at the SAG sign-in sheet. So these tall men that are at least 6 feet, if not over, are stooping down to crouch over this tiny little table, the size maybe of a little TV table, yeah, right? That you bring to put your foot on. And they're signing their names and their numbers and I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, oh my God, these guys still do that? They have to still do that? Because, in my mind, I'm thinking people like this just get a call from the agent, right? It's just a deal is made. But no, they were having to audition just like me. And then I looked around and I saw one other lady there. And she might have been older than me, I don't know. But she was definitely very character. And I thought to myself, wow, she has got a face. I mean, her face looked like a road map of life. It was just every step she'd taken had walked on that face. And she was tiny. She was so petite. She was just a tiny little thing. When she looked up and she had no expression on her face whatsoever. And I smiled because I didn't know what I was doing. And then I went over and signed in at the girls' table. They had a girls' table, they had a boys' table, a girls' table. And then I sat down, and since she was ahead of me, I assumed, you go in first come, first serve, whatever. So they call John O'Hurley in, and he goes in, comes back out. See you later, guys. He knew them all, right? Because their entire careers, they've all auditioned for the same parts of the same shows, etc. And he leaves, and then they call me. And I thought they were going to call, the other guys, right? No, they call me. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I take my, clutch my little papers, and I walk in. And I walk in this room, and it is the only way I can describe it is like if you were on a ship and you were below deck, and there's just a tiny little hallway, that you're walking through to get to your berth, right? And your cabin. And that's what it was like. I opened the door, and this narrow little place, and then it breaks open at the very end, and I can see a desk and a chair that's empty. That was for Chris Carter. But all the way around that room and that little tiny hallway type thing, it wasn't a hallway, it was a room, but it was tiny. It was so narrow. There were people sitting on a built-in bench all the way along it, and right in the middle was the casting director and an empty chair for me to look at him and read. And so he had a really hard word, very scientific word in the very first bit of dialogue. And he was rehearsing that. He was practicing that with the writer, or one of the writers, I guess. And I said to him, you better get that right, or you'll throw me. I was just joking, right? He goes, you better not get thrown. I was like, oh, okay. And he was kidding too. He was kidding too, but I was terrified. And I was like, okay. And then I never looked at anybody. Now, I had a really bad habit of saluting doors when I walked out of the rooms of auditions. I don't know why I did that. I think it was a nervous thing, but I would oftentimes on my way out thank them, and then I would go, and as I opened the door, I would salute. And I don't know why that is. And just as I was about to salute, I heard when I left the audition, I heard somebody say, that was lovely or great or something. It was some superlative. And I thought, and I just nodded, and I forgot to salute. And I opened the door, and I got out, and I thought, oh my God, I didn't salute. Like that probably meant I jinxed it. And then I left, I signed out, I left, and I got lost on the way back to the car. I went the wrong way. And in the meantime, I'm trying to remember the audition. And I don't know if you guys have ever acted, but sometimes if you're really into it, you don't remember it. It's almost like an out-of-body experience. It's almost like a trauma. You really don't remember what you did. And then other times you remember, well, especially when you choke, you always remember what you did and didn't do. And so I'm walking back there, and I can't remember. And I'm like, oh my God, were they being facetious? Oh my God. And then I'm talking to myself, and now I'm in the back, and it's muddy because it's been drizzling rain all day long. And I am behind this series of bungalows in this, like forest, like it's like got leaves and trees, and I don't know where the heck I am, except I'm still on the lot, and I'm talking to myself, and I'm starting to cry, and then I start chastising myself. Don't you cry on the studio lot. You're on a studio lot. You don't cry on a studio lot. And about that time, I was like behind a little series of bungalows, and obviously some writers still preferred typing with a typewriter, because I could hear as I approached the clack of keys, tap, 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 tap. And then as I said, you don't get to cry on a studio lot, you suck it up. And I heard him stop, like, what?
No.
Who? where? And then I went, oh my God, you're talking out loud. People can hear you. And then I shut up. And then I looked up and I saw some kind of a gas tank thing, a gas tank where they gas up their trucks. And I thought, oh, I saw that when I came in and parked my car. So I headed for that. And then I ended up in the parking tarmac or whatever. And the guy there just looked at me and he goes, where did you come from? And I said, I don't know. I was behind. I got lost. I don't know. I was behind. I need to go, because I needed to cry. I needed to sob because I had blown the audition. And, this was back in the time of pagers. And I think I'd had a pager in fact, I don't even know if I'd had a pager. I think I bought the pager the day I actually got the sides and realized they hadn't made a mistake. And so I'd gotten it over the weekend or something. So it's the first time I'd ever had a pager. So I went on home and I got my car. And as soon as I hit, I think it was Olympic Boulevard, I started crying. I cried all the way home. I looked like an alien when I got there. I was just a mess. And I get home and my agent calls and she said, or my manager, and she says, are you sitting down? And I said, what? And she said, are you sitting down? And I said, no, I don't remember what I did. I think I'm just meant for bit parts. I just don't know. I can't remember. And I think I blew the audition. And she said, sit down. And I sat down. And then she said, you are on a veil. Now, I'd never gotten on a veil in my life, so I didn't know what that was. And I said, what is that? And she said, that means if they don't find somebody they like better than you in Vancouver, you're going to go to Vancouver. So keep that beeper with you at all times.
Right.
I was like, okay. So that's what it was. We waited, I don't know, what was it, 3-4 days? I don't know. And I was at my day job and that beeper went off. And I asked the girl that I was standing talking to, I said, may I use your telephone? And she said, absolutely not, because she knew what it was. She was teasing. And I said, if you don't let me use your phone, I'll call your face off. And I wasn't kidding. And so then she did. And my manager said, are you sitting down? I said, no, just tell me what. And she said, do you have a passport? And I said, yes. And she said, is it current? And I said, yes. And she said, then you're going to Vancouver. And that was it. And that was the most fun 2 weeks I ever had since I moved to LA. I had the best time. And when I wasn't shooting, my understudy, or my stand-in, I guess they call it stand-in there, she would take me on tours of Vancouver. Yeah, she took me all over the city. I had the best stand-in. I had the best experience I've ever had. I thought, Gillian and Duchovny, they were fabulous. They were so much fun. Chris Carter was a delight. And I only screwed up my lines a few times and they didn't fire me. That was always good. And yeah, and that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Now, do you have a favorite memory from those 2 weeks, whether it be on set or being out in Vancouver? What is your favorite memory from that experience?
I had so many, but one of them was when we were doing, quote, a rehearsal for the very first scene that I had with David Duchovny, and he had not really spoken to me. I mean, he had. I had introduced myself to him. But when I did that, I spoke in this voice, and I tried to appear professional and, but, without excitement. And then when I said my first line to him, I don't even know what it was, like those little werewolf things or what, like werewolf children or something. They said cut. And then he looked at me and he said, where are you from? And I said, Mississippi, what's it to you? And he went. And then the other good memory I have is that when I was talking about something in a scene with them about the I don't know if it was that they ate my peanut butter. It wasn't that scene, but it was another one. And I was telling all about something. And then all of a sudden they said cut, and I heard all this laughter because they had the camera and the monitors in another room because of the tightness of the space.
Right.
And I heard all of this guffawing. And then I said, "What's so funny?" And I heard Chris Carter say, "You are." And I'm like, oh, that's really good. And then Gillian, one morning we were in our makeup and I walked in and she has a really great ear anyway, as you know, but she started talking to me in a Southern accent. "Hey, ma'am, how you doing? How you doing this morning, ma'am?" I mean, they were all, I cannot tell you, I felt like by the time I left there, I felt like I was leaving home. I had never been made to feel so part of something. And the other thing I have to say about that particular episode for myself is that I loved the writing, but I loved the writing in all the episodes I saw, right? But when I read the whole script, once I got the whole script, I just loved it. But I can tell you this, I never in a million years got close to what that man created on the screen in my vision as I was reading. Like I can, travel the emotions and whatever and the comedy rhythms of a character, but what he did with that episode and with Cher's music and with that story was absolutely unbelievable to me. I was so surprised, and I can't tell you how delighted I was. I was just like, oh my God, this is like one of the best episodes I ever saw, and it wasn't even because I was in it. It was just wonderful. I can't say enough. I wish he'd hire me again, but I don't think he does anything anymore. I think he just has to.
Yeah.
Well, he surfs. You're out there. I really need a job. How about that? Well, thank you so much. It was just an absolute joy. It was one of those times in your life where everything falls into place and all you have to do is show up. That it was just like that. And what was even more exciting was that I was actually doing a play here in Los Angeles at the time. And of course, I had to tell the producers, I got an episode of the X-Files and I'm going to Vancouver and I know that you need to recast me. And I'm so sorry, because it was opening like within a week after my return. And there was just no way that I could do both. Right. And they ended up getting an understudy for me so that she could open the show and that I would have enough time to rehearse back into it. And then I got to do the rest of the run.
It's great.
And I know, I mean, it's like, how does that happen? How does somebody get that lucky? I don't know. But you know what? That whole experience just opened up worlds for me.
That's awesome.
You're obviously a fan.
Yes.
Which is awesome because that makes the next question that much more fun. So why do you think the X-Files is still so relevant more than 25 years later?
Yeah, why am I still watching your episode over and over and over again?
Yeah. What do you think it is about the X-Files that just connects with people?
Well, I think it's the fact that, none of us are perfect. We're all kind of alien in some way, right? I mean, like David's character, Mulder and Scully, is that right?
Yeah,
I said that right? I'm so old now, I have to worry. But no, they were like, she was completely cynical. I mean, like, she didn't believe in my character's assertions. Absolutely not. And then he's willing to believe in A to Z and on A to infinity, right? His mind is so wide open, and yet part of what he knows to be true is always disqualified a little just by his own humanity. The fact that he has no patience, the fact that he gets discouraged, the fact that he gets blocked by these political figures or the supervisors or whatever, right? Other obstacles get in the way, and some of them are of his own making. And how many of us as human beings don't go through that every single days of our lives? I mean, we all do. So that's that aspect of it. And then the other aspect is, the postmodern Prometheus script was very indicative of so many things that the writers and Chris Carter wrote for the show. It was about the heart of humanity. It was about the heart of people. I remember that episode, and it was a fabulous episode. It was one of my favorites, actually, about the lady who had all those sons, and she didn't have any, I think she didn't have any arms and legs, and she rolled around on that, right? Scary, freaky.
Yeah.
Okay. But they were her boys. They were her sons. Right? And they were protecting mama. And that was the type of love. That was out of a love, right?
Yeah.
And then you had that guy that had the tail, right? Remember the guy with the tail? And all he was just in love.
Yeah.
He wanted to meet Scully, right? Wasn't that what it was? Didn't he want to meet Scully?
He became Mulder. Yeah, he shape shift.
Yeah, and he became Mulder so he could be with her.
Yeah.
And, the human heart is vast and powerful. And that show focused on everything out of this world, as well as the most common denominator in this world, at least to me. And that's why I watch it today. That's why I do watch it today whenever I see it, and that's why I'm so proud of having been a part of it.
Okay, I have to ask you the dorkiest thing, and I have to apologize, and Lauren's going to make fun of me later, but can you say the Great Mutato for me? The way you said it in the show.
Oh, that's the Great Mutato.
The next question I have is, if you could say one thing to the fans of the show from the last 27 years, what would you say?
Mm-hmm.
Or multiple things. If you could, what would you say to fans like us or anybody else who's watched the show for as long as you have and as long as we have?
The truth is out there. No, it is. I totally believe that. Yeah. Just keep seeking. Keep watching and keep looking, because there will never be another X-Files, but there will be something, and again, that touches people in the same way that show did. It's not a one-off. It's, in my opinion, and it will always be remembered, and it will always be cherished for what it is and what it gives still today, and for me, when I can watch episodes of it, it just gives me a great feeling of knowing that, you don't have to be perfect. You don't even have to be all that determined. All you have to do is just open your mind a little bit. And I think that's what the world needs right now. So if X-Filers are still watching the X-Files 27 years from now, I will be happy, because that will mean they have kept an open mind. Look, there's so many great episodes in it. I mean, from all the smarmy political, all of that stuff. I mean, I love that stuff. But then you'd get into the real, weird stuff. And it was always brought back to be so human,
Yeah.
and and even all of that, you know, the political or the bad guy stuff, you know, that was always very human too.
Yeah.
You know, there's a very you know, the X-Files, you know, really navigated the planes of humanity that people travel, you know, from greed and deceit to absolute what if, you know, potential possibility. And I think that's why it's been so successful and was so successful and will always be so successful. Thank you so much.